When we think of North Korea, we usually picture missile tests, huge military parades, right? But what is daily life really like for the 25 million people living there? Under what is arguably the world's most terrifying dictatorship. The government tries to control every single thing its citizens do. So let's dive in and see what that actually looks like on the ground. To really get a handle on this reality, I think we have to start by listening to the people who've lived through its absolute worst version. This quote, it's from a man named Shin Dong-hyuk. He's the first person we know of who was actually born inside a North Korean political prison camp and managed to escape. His words, well, they set the stage for a story that is almost impossible to believe. So we're calling this first part The Hook, for a pretty good reason. Shin's story is our way into this world. See, he wasn't sent to a prison camp. He was born in one. He knew absolutely nothing about the outside world, a place where the only way to survive was to betray the very idea of what family is supposed to mean. Okay, let's just walk through this timeline for a second. He's born inside Camp 14, and his whole childhood is just hunger and brutality. Then, when he's only 13 years old, he overhears his own mother and brother planning to escape. And what does he do? He reports them to the guards, hoping he'll get a bigger food ration as a reward. He was then forced to watch their public execution. It took him another 10 years until he was 23 to finally escape himself. And his story, it's what blew the lid off the horrors of this camp system for the rest of the world. Now you're probably asking, wait, why was he born in a prison camp in the first place? And the answer is this absolutely terrifying concept called guilt by association. It turns out, years earlier, Shin's uncle had managed to flee to South Korea. And for that one crime committed by one person, his entire family, including relatives who weren't even born yet, were condemned to life in the camps. Yeah, and this right here, this really drives home just how insane this policy is. It's not just you, it's your parents and it's your children. 3 entire generations can be effectively erased from society, all because of the political crime of one single person. This is one of the regime's most powerful tools of control. Shin's story is, of course, the absolute extreme, but the system that created those camps, it reaches into every single corner of daily life for every citizen. The state's goal is total, absolute control, from the biggest life decisions right down to the most random personal things. So let's start with this. Imagine not having any say in your career. The government just assigns you a job and, well, that's what you do. For most men, this also includes up to 10 years of mandatory military service before they even start that job. And where you live? No, not your choice either. The state decides where you get to live, and it's often based on how loyal they think you are. Living in the capital, Pyongyang, that's a huge privilege that's really only for the most elite and trusted families. Okay, and this is where the level of control just gets surreal. The government literally dictates your personal style. There are state-approved lists of haircuts, 15 for men, 15 for women. And of course, Kim Jong-un's signature haircut? Not on the list. No way. Nobody else is allowed to have it. And it does not stop with hair. Just look at this list. Blue jeans, red lipstick, any kind of hair dye. All of it is banned. Why? Because they're seen as symbols of a corrupt Western cultural invasion. They even have something called a fashion police force that actually patrols the streets, ready to cut up your clothes or slap you with a fine if you're breaking the rules. So what happens if you do break these rules? Whether it's something small like wearing skinny jeans or something much, much more serious like criticizing the regime. Well, this brings us right back to the prison camps. The best estimates we have suggest that right now, somewhere between 80,000 and 120,000 people are being held in these political prison camps, which are called Kwanliso. These are basically huge, sprawling labor camps designed to punish and, frankly, to eliminate anyone seen as an enemy of the state. And the conditions inside are they're beyond what you can imagine. Prisoners are forced into back-breaking labor for up to 18 hours a day. The food rations are so small that an estimated 40% of prisoners literally die from starvation. Survivors, like Shin, talk about eating rats, grass, and snakes just to have something in their stomachs. And if you even think about escaping, it means immediate execution. Now, to stop any dissent before it can even start, the regime has basically created a society of informants. They use this strict class system called Songbun, which ranks every citizen by their family's loyalty. And the secret police use this to force people to spy on their friends, their neighbors, even their own family members. It creates this deep, chilling distrust that makes any kind of organized resistance almost impossible. But here's the thing. Even in this perfectly controlled paranoid state, a crack started to appear. And it came from a totally unexpected place. A complete economic collapse, forced to change that the government never ever wanted and is still trying to control today. So, back in the early 90s, when the Soviet Union collapsed, all of its aid to North Korea just dried up. The state-run system that was supposed to distribute food completely failed, and the country was plunged into this horrific famine that may have killed as many as 2 million people. The state couldn't provide anymore, so people had to figure out how to survive on their own. And what's so fascinating about this is who stepped up. Because men were still tied to their now useless state jobs, it was the married women who started setting up illegal black markets, called jangmadang. They started small, selling whatever they could find or make just to feed their families. And today, it's estimated that women earn over 70% of a typical household's income, creating this quiet but massive social revolution. But these markets did way more than just put food on the table. They became these thriving hubs of illegal activity. And, most importantly, they became channels for information from the outside world. Information that completely contradicts decades of intense state propaganda. And that's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? In a country with no real internet access and total state control over all media, how on earth does the truth actually get inside? Well, the answer lies in the very same markets that were born out of pure desperation. Smuggled USB sticks are the main weapon here. They get loaded up with South Korean TV dramas and Hollywood movies. People then use these cheap, easy-to-hide Chinese media players called Notels to watch them in total secret. So, for the first time ever, many North Koreans are seeing a world filled with freedom and wealth that they were always told simply didn't exist. And just look at how common this has become. A survey of recent defectors found that 81% of them had access to these USBs, and of those, a whopping 98% had illegal foreign media on them. The propaganda wall is literally crumbling, one smuggled K-drama at a time. At the same exact time, massive corruption is weakening the state's grip from the inside. Bribery is just a part of life now. People have figured out that they can pay off officials to look the other way, whether it's for wearing banned jeans or for watching a forbidden movie. And every time that happens, it chips away at the fear that the whole system relies on. And this quote from a defector really brings us to the most powerful change of all. He says that the government system of making everyone distrust each other is failing. Because think about it. When you secretly watch a banned movie with your friend, you're sharing a risk. You are building trust. These small, illegal acts are actually rebuilding the human bonds that the regime worked so hard for so many decades to destroy. So we'll end on this question. Just think about it for a second. If the state controlled every single part of your life, your job, your home, your clothes, the music you listen to, the movies you watch, what's the one thing, big or small, that you would miss the most? It's a pretty powerful reminder of what's really at stake inside North Korea and the incredible value of the simple choices we so often take for granted.